Welcome to the Massacre Matinee.
Okay.
Last time they got done with life, me, and then now it's just like I'm so tired.
That's okay.
I haven't been able to fucking sleep. My grandmother fucking broke her foot. This is the intro. I'm sorry.
Just taking it right the fuck over, huh?
Taking it over. This is intro. My grandmother fucking broke her foot, and she had to be such a smartass to the paramedics.
Welcome back to the Matinee, Kate.
Welcome back.
I hope you guys enjoyed the intro. And what is going to become our new tradition of being a little bit more loose before the intros kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we were too stiff because we were like, oh, we gotta be professional. And then you listen to professional podcasts and you're like, oh.
Which is crazy because I think us relaxing has definitely made a difference on the podcast in general.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome back to part 2 of the Daniel William Marsh case and the murders of Chip and Claudia. Super quick recap on last episode, which if you haven't listened to last week's podcast episode yet, you definitely have to do that because there's a lot of details in there. But a quick recap on that. Daniel William Marsh was a hero at 10 years old after saving his dad's life from a heart attack. And after his 15 minutes of fame for his heroism, his family divorced, and he got depressed and started having homicidal fantasies and then taking antidepressants and threatening people. Where we're going to pick back up on this is, you remember last episode when I was like, yeah, so he just kind of stood at the foot of their bed for 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah, all creepily, which is like my worst fucking nightmare. I think I said that last episode. That is my worst nightmare.
We were talking about...
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, River would alert me to their presence.
Now, before I forget, by the way, I did not mention last week's snack. We kind of took a little bit of a hiatus of the snacks, but I threw a couple snacks in for this case. 2 snacks for this case, 1 for each part. So last week's snack was Sour Patch Kids, except opposite, because he started out sweet and then went sour instead of starting out sour and going sweet. Yeah, this week's snack is the Atomic Fireballs, because it's pretty fucking spicy. Like, this is the return of Doozy Scale again, because we keep kind of hit or missing with Doozy Scale. But anyway. So after about 10 minutes of him standing there and watching Chip and Claudia sleep, Claudia woke up and was like, oh, who the fuck? And starts like screaming. Do you think she got the feeling that she was being watched and that's why she woke up?
Oh, without a doubt.
She wakes up, she sees him there, and she starts to freak out and starts screaming. And he's like, whoa, fuck. And he jumps on and starts stabbing. Just going fucking nuts. He took his 6-inch buck knife that he brought, took that and just all the way up to the hilt, stabbing her in the torso over and over and over again. And surprisingly enough, Chip didn't wake up very quickly. Like, Claudia was probably long since dead before he woke up, according to Daniel. A lot of the information on the murders themselves in this regard was from Daniel himself, which is corroborated by evidence.
I think I remember him describing this. She just kind of went,
maybe it was just a gasp.
It was just a gasp.
Okay. The thing is, though, is everything that I was reading was saying that, like, while he was stabbing, she was like, why are you doing this? And trying to get help and yell for help and stuff like that. And like I said, a lot of this stuff I'm not sure on because he told a couple of different stories.
Yeah, I like
throughout the course of this.
That she could have gotten like the gasp, I believe, because like you're not gonna
like shock. Yeah,
you're like whoa, like because who knows if Chip is on any kind of medications to help him sleep or something like that.
True, he could just naturally be a heavy sleeper.
Oh yeah, because I mean, geez, Teddy sleeps like the freaking dead sometimes. Yeah. And I like River jumps on the bed, I'm awake. Like any little sudden movement, I'm awake. So I can kind of understand that. And she might have just been a light sleeper. But I feel like if someone is next to you at this point, on top of your wife, stabbing her,
I think you would bed moving.
The bed would be moving. You'd be shook and awake. So I do think that she probably didn't make a whole lot of noise, and the timeline could have been a little bit different than what Daniel made it out to seem, because to him it might have been like
it might have happened
seemed longer
over a long time, yeah,
versus it was only a few seconds.
Right. So as I said, though, everything that I saw said that she was like begging him to stop and things like that.
Oh, she could have.
And he later admitted that her like screaming and crying and being like, "Stop it! Why are you doing this?" was motivating to him, and it just made him want to be more vicious with his attacks and just hit harder and stab deeper. And I feel like this would be a what's that Daft Punk song? Harder, better, faster, stronger.
Oh
Bad
We're
placement.
morbid. We are. Damn, if only morbid wasn't already taken for a podcast name.
The Morbid Matinee.
Oh.
One can dream. Maybe someday we'll link up with them for a couple of cases or something, and we can call those episodes the Morbid Matinee. Marsh was actually quoted saying that the old lady would just not die. Like, he said he kind of had to, like, work for it for her to die, which I would hope so. I mean, she was probably fighting her ass off.
It's weird how people think how easily it is to die. Don't get me wrong, it is. But at the same time, your body kind of, like, tries its hardest not to die.
Well, the thing is
it's not as quick as people think, like, then they see it in the movies. Like, when you actually have somebody dying, like, you just slitting their throat isn't automatically, like, a death sentence. Like,
right.
It takes a bit for that blood to exit the body. It's a little bit quicker, as if, you know, and if you stab someone in, like, if you don't hit someone's major artery, then, like, yes, obviously it takes longer.
Right.
But even then, like, it's not instant. And I think that's what he thought would happen.
Maybe.
Because I know that he had killed animals before, and animals.
Yes, like, he had killed what was admitted was a cat and a raccoon, and he asked if he could kill his friend's dog.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, you figured you would.
But humans are a lot harder to kill than animals.
Humans fight back.
Yeah, and she
a lot more.
I bet she was.
I'd bet
throwing
anything
punches.
She fought back pretty hard. Somehow, from everything that I read, Chip didn't wake up like right away. But when he did wake up, Marsh immediately just turned and started stabbing him. And he stabbed him repeatedly until he, quote, knew he was dead. The fact that they both had so close to the same amount of stab wounds in the end of it all is kind of...
counting?
I don't know that he was counting, but they were fairly close in the amount that there were. But after he made sure that they were both dead, apparently, he just kept mutilating the bodies.
This is the part that makes me feel so icky. Yeah. This part. This is a trigger warning for some people. Like,
this whole episode is a trigger warning, don't worry. So, Marsh was quoted saying that after the murders, it felt right. And in that situation, he felt like... He claimed he was, quote, taking care of overpopulation. By killing two old people.
Two people that have probably no more than 10, 15 years left.
Right. So, in total, Claudia was stabbed 67 times, and Chip was stabbed 61 times. That is not the total number of overall wounds to the body. That's just the number of stabs. This gets into the nitty-gritty details a little bit here. Just like...
Ooh.
Fair warning. So, despite the numerous stab wounds, 74 separate wounds were found inflicted on Claudia's body and 65 separate wounds on Chip's. So, Claudia had an additional 7 wounds, and Chip had an additional 4. Which... It doesn't seem like that's that many additional wounds.
But it's what the
until
additional
you realize
wounds are.
what they are. Yeah. So, Marsh went so far as to disembowel them. He took Claudia's own cell phone and put it inside of her body. Important detail for later.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing they must, a lot of people, they'll keep like a glass of water on the table next to them.
Yeah,
when they're sleeping at night or something,
the room for stuff.
Because he took a drinking glass and put that inside Chip's abdomen.
And it's just because he was fascinated by the human body. It was just because
he was curious.
I can
he was
do
curious.
this.
During an interrogation, he actually claimed that he did the cell phone in the cup only to fuck with the police that were going to investigate it later.
Yeah,
That's all he wanted to do.
How fucked up can I make this look?
All he
like,
wanted,
how
and
crazy.
keep in mind that he'd worn gloves and he taped his shoes and he was fully clothed and like keeping all of his DNA away.
If you're a police officer and you find this and then you take the body and you take it to like the people that are gonna do the autopsy and be like, oh, how'd this person die? Well, obviously
it takes some time to figure that shit out.
Right.
That's for sure.
And then for them to open this person up and see a cell phone or a cup, and they're gonna be
they
like,
were already open.
Right.
Let me continue.
Yeah,
Let me continue.
Oh no.
In addition to putting the cell phone and the cup in there, he decided to slice open and pull some fat out of one of Claudia's legs because he was curious.
Yeah.
And for that same reason, he also cut open Chip's forehead to look inside, just because.
Oh yeah, I forgot that he randomly. Oh, didn't he also like cut one of their chins? Or am I thinking of a different case?
I do not recall that detail specifically. However, he did also try to cut out one of Claudia's eyes, but he gave out because it was too hard. I'm not sure if that was something that he wanted to, like, keep.
See, the thing that kind of gets me weirded out, because when you see people who have these urges and everything like that, and they've been working themselves up and they're like, okay, I'm going to kill somebody, I need to get this urge taken care of, they always are the ones that are taking trophies, and he didn't take a trophy.
Not a direct trophy.
Not one that we knew of, obviously.
Yeah.
But like they usually take like a physical trophy, whether it's an item from the person or if it's like, okay, I'm gonna
piece
take
of the person.
piece of the person and everything like that. But he didn't do that, and the fact that he was like, I'm gonna fuck with police and put these objects into them just to be like, oh, I'm this fucking crazy person. This is my MO of putting objects into them.
Right.
But it's like, God, to get into this dude's head. I don't know, terrifying place.
I was gonna say, I don't know that I'd want to be in there. I don't like horror movies.
Wonder,
I love true crime. I hate horror movies.
Me too. It depends on the horror movie. If they're paranormal horror movies, then I'm okay. If it's gory, I'm just like,
I don't like being scared. Maybe it's just because I have a heart problem.
I mean, yeah, you just like jump scared and bitch you're dead.
Jump scare myself to death. So, serious moment. Later during the trial, one of the responding paramedics, because they called paramedics.
Oh my God, I feel so bad for paramedics.
Went on record to state that Marsh had in fact fully removed the abdominal organs from both Chip and Claudia. Like fully disemboweled, took the guts out. You guys can't see it, but she like ever so slightly rested her forehead against the microphone. Just like, ooh.
I want. So he just treated them like they were deer and just
field dressed
them and just left all of their organs on their bed sheets.
Pretty much. Which just horrifying. I'll just say horrifying.
The amount of blood.
Mm?
How? Okay. See, I'm an avid deer hunter. I cannot stand the smell of deer blood. I don't know. I've never been around a large amount of human blood. I can't stand the iron smell.
We've discussed this in the past, yeah.
Have we? And I just
it's pretty on point for the smell. It's pretty similar. Deer smells obviously a little bit more
stand
grassy.
Being in a room with that much blood.
Well, he was all about it. Obviously.
Oh yeah, didn't he have like, wasn't his Tumblr page like all just nothing but like
gore porn
and shit? But it's like also the feeling of the organs, didn't that give him like the heebie-jeebies? Like, ooh, this is slimy. Like, or did he just be like a kid playing in sand?
To hear it described like a kid playing in sand, if that's how he felt, then
he's more fucked up than we thought.
Right.
Oh my God. He was only 15.
Yeah.
This is a 15-year-old doing this.
Yeah. Now, according to Marsh, committing these murders was better than sex and gave him an exhilarating relief that he maintained for weeks after these murders. He actually went on to get Student of the Month.
He high-key
after
did not
he committed
know
the murders.
What sex was like then. I highly
He had
doubt.
a girlfriend at the time. I'm not sure what
all they were doing.
Just because he had a girlfriend
doesn't mean...
I'm not sure what all they were doing, but it was 2013.
Unless he was just like, this is a term better than sex, so I'm just gonna use it. I'm like,
Maybe.
buddy, maybe if you became a sex addict, maybe this would have been better.
He actually kept the knife and the bloody clothes that he wore during the murders as souvenirs. Just hung on to them. Like most, I thought it was like Murder 101 to get rid of that stuff.
You get rid of it, or you like keep it where other people won't go.
Won't find it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would think, because he did end up hiding them, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
It comes up. Marsh admitted that following the gruesome murders, he actually intended to kill more people. So he switched out the buck knife for a baseball bat, like swapped his clothes and stuff, and just kind of wandered around town looking for somebody to beat the fuck out of.
Could you imagine if a cop just rolled up to him walking
Right.
in all
Thankfully, he
black
didn't find any
clothes
more victims. Thankfully.
with a baseball bat? Oh
Mhm.
my god!
Just shook.
The
He
amount
looked
of-
so
The
shook.
amount of fucking opportunities that this person had to like get arrested and like just didn't.
So many chances. So many chances. Now, that was just the info on the murders. Most of this episode is actually going to be on the investigation and the trial, because this is where a lot of crazy stuff ended up happening. So, they died on April 13th. So the morning of the 14th, after the murders, their families were like, hey, something's going on, because they didn't show up at church. They were heavily involved in the church. Chip was actually, I was able to find out a little bit more details about Chip and Claudia after the fact. Chip was actually one of the founders of that particular church location. So, like, they were super involved. When they weren't there, people would notice, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, 'cause he was I think he did like their accounting or something like that too. Like he was
He was one of the founders.
or no,
one of
she
one
did
of the
something
original
for it.
people. She probably did something for it. She was
She did some kind of office work for her, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
I believe so. So they didn't show up at the church, so a few people from the family called and they didn't get an answer. And then later on that day, Chip didn't show up for a gig with his local folk band. So Chip's son Robert and one of Robert's sons stopped over at the house. They had a key to get inside, but they were like, well, I'm not going to burst in, because everything that they saw, it looked like they were just gone on vacation. They just didn't let anybody know, kind of thing. So they were just like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, because everything.
They'll give us
but
a call
their
when they get there,
bedroom
kind of
was-
thing. Yeah. So later on in the evening, after more phone calls and being unable to get a hold of them, Claudia's daughter Laura went to the house and rang the doorbell, got no answer. She was like, well, I'll just check around the house, make sure everything's okay. And she got around to the side of the house and saw the window with the sliced screen and was like, well, something's not right.
Right.
And she kind of kept walking until she got to the bedroom window, and through the bedroom window she saw blood. She didn't see details, but she saw blood. So she ended up getting a hold of the police, and the police showed up, and she showed them everything. And they were able to use their flashlights and shine their flashlights through the window, and they were able to see the two bodies on the bed. Which, at that point, was all the cause that they needed to kick that fucking front door down and be like, what the hell?
Oh my god. Just to see that, just like thinking, okay, we're gonna see probably someone who like fell, hit their head or something like that, and like something happened, or maybe they just like died peacefully in their sleep because they were older, and then just to see that, like, oh,
They did not die peacefully.
first responders do not get enough credit.
I know. So, the police, with the assistance of 25 FBI agents over the course of the investigation, they launched an investigation into the murders, but there was such a lack of physical evidence. It was actually described by the DA at the time, Jeff Reisig, that it was the most horrific and depraved murder he's ever seen as the district attorney for Yolo County, and that the complete lack of footprints, fingerprints, and DNA was unlike anything he had seen in his career or in his life up until that point.
Right, because it's like a ghost just came in,
And
disemboweled these two people, and then
there was just
left.
nothing there.
Like, the only evidence that showed that someone got into that house was that screen.
Right. So the following morning, April 15th, calls started going out to the family to let them know finally what happened. At this point, there was no suspect, so understandably the police and the investigating team were kind of playing things close to the chest and not really revealing too much information. They still had to rule out things in the family. So all that was revealed to the family at that time was that Chip and Claudia had been stabbed multiple times, and the coroner in charge of the autopsies was quoted saying, "All I can tell you is that multiple means more than 12." So the family didn't get any answers. They got so blocked off from being able to understand and come to terms and mourn, grieve, and move on kind of thing, because the police were like, well, there's no evidence, so we need to look into everybody that has keys. So they started looking into family members.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So, and that, it does happen a lot in murder investigations. I mean, a woman dies, they'll look at the boyfriend or the girlfriend or whatever, and they'll check into family first, because especially in crimes that seem so passionate like this, because they're like,
someone you know.
They had to have known this person to be so personal and intimate about this murder, which, as I said last episode, is why I don't think that Daniel would have ever done a gun crime, because he really seems to be that I need to be in there up close feeling it, you know. So a lot of the family members were brought in and interviewed. In particular to this were Chip's son Robert, who had gone over with one of his sons. And they also brought in Robert's two sons, Oliver and Tony. Now, Oliver actually has a schizophrenia diagnosis. So I feel like that kind of made the police go, well, maybe he just snapped and did it.
Right.
Honestly, I feel like they probably looked at him and just saw him as like a jackpot. Like, oh, it's obviously
here's a shut and
it's
done,
obviously this guy will be on vacation
the way
tomorrow.
That I think about it, if you have someone with schizophrenia, it's not going to be all clean, no DNA or all of that kind of stuff.
It would have just been,
unless it's the paranoia one, then they might.
Maybe, but it would have been spontaneous.
They wouldn't have been in their bed.
Yeah. So after multiple days of questioning, Robert actually said that the first day it was like 8 hours of questioning. The second day it was like 6 hours, just lots and lots of questioning from the officers. But after all those hours of answering the questions, they were finally cleared of all the suspicion. Robert and Oliver were. Robert kept telling himself and telling Oliver that Chip would have wanted them to just cooperate in every way possible and answer all the questions. And they both chose to be questioned without a lawyer, which some people see as, well, they must be innocent because they didn't want a lawyer, but I still feel like,
even if you're innocent, just have a lawyer, because they're only there to help you.
Yes. And
there is
such a stigma. There's such a stigma that asking for a lawyer means that you're guilty, but it doesn't.
No, it's just one of your rights. And it's good to have, because then they can be like, hey, this cop's trying to like force a confession out of you even though you didn't do it. Because there's some cops that just get it in their mind, this person did it. So then they do all of these tactics to just pressure the person into admitting to it, just so then in some cases, basically borderline torture ends.
Right. And that's not to say all cops do it, but there are cops out there that are like that. So the only two things that the investigators found through their entire investigation into Robert and his sons was a drawing that Tony had made. And I saw a picture of the drawing. It looked like it was from like quite a few years back.
Yeah, I think they had like in the Explore With Us episode, they brought that up, and they were talking about how it was done like years beforehand.
Yeah, because I don't know how old Oliver and Tony were at the time of this. It's not something I thought to look up, but based on pictures I saw, I would have put them between like 15 to 18. Yeah. Easily. And the pictures looked like they were drawn by like someone that was like 6 to 10. Yeah. So, but the only two things they found were a drawing that Tony made back when he was young of a man with a knife standing over two children in a bed. And they were suspicious of the fact that Robert had his carpets steam cleaned on the day of the murders. Now, Robert was a pretty understanding guy about this whole thing. Right. Because he was quoted saying, yeah, it was bad timing. I didn't anticipate that would be the same weekend that my father was murdered. Like, I don't know that I would have been so cool as a cucumber about that.
God. I mean, that's when he finally broke down just a little bit and got that, like, smart-ass, like, remark into there. But, like, I don't blame him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Now, I told you that they were looking into Robert, Oliver, and Tony.
Yeah.
And that Robert and Oliver were cleared. Tony wasn't cleared. The family actually worked together and spent thousands of dollars hiring an attorney to defend Tony, all because of that drawing.
Yeah.
Which had happened years earlier, and repairing all the damages that the investigators did to the house.
Oh, yeah, because
they cut out huge sections of carpet. They ripped up flooring. They started disassembling drains and taking drains just in case you flushed anything.
Yeah, they, like, completely turned that house upside down. And it's not like they put it back together once they're done.
No, they're not obligated.
All right, I guess we didn't find anything.
Exactly. Tony, following the false accusations and eventual clearing of his name, still felt that his neighbors felt that he was guilty of it,
right,
and thought that it was his fault and that he had actually done it. So you remember the other day when I texted you and said, "Oh my God, there were 3 victims."
Yeah.
Tony went on to commit suicide 3 years after the murders. Because he felt so guilty because they basically went after him and painted him out to be this horrible person,
get that
and he was innocent.
reputation in their heads, and like they think, okay, well maybe this person wasn't convicted, but maybe he like told them that they were going to be there or something like that, and just like think they have that apart. Like,
and by all accounts, Chip was all about those boys. He was all about hanging out with Oliver and Tony, and he'd hang out with them all the time. And Oliver went on to get a memorial tattoo on his shoulder for Chip and for his brother. So the thing is that was a big part of the investigation. That's kind of as far as the police-led investigation went. So how did Marsh get caught? Well, it was mostly his ego.
Dude, this is like the one part that just was like, you could have fucking gotten away with it. You just had to run your big ass mouth.
And that's exactly what he did. He did that the morning of April 14th after the murders.
He couldn't have been like, ooh, a week ago. Like,
he bragged to a friend about the murders, and then again at lunch to some other students. And then again after school to his then girlfriend, going so far as to give her details. And she thought he was joking because she's like, there's no way he would know that.
Well, yeah, if someone comes up to you and is like, hey, I just murdered these 2
all
fucking
these
people.
Did you hear about those murders? It was me.
It was me.
I don't necessarily know that I'd believe that right away.
I don't even know if they were still together.
However,
I think she was like trying
They
to.
were.
Were they? Because I think she was trying to like distance herself from him. Or this was like the start of it.
It'll all come up. I promise. You're getting ahead of me.
Am I so sorry?
So on April 15th, the next day, so the family's just now getting phone calls at this point to find out that Chip and Claudia are dead. And on that day, he again described this crime to another friend, calling it an awesome experience, great experience. He loved it, sort of thing. On the 16th, he was asked about the murders by another friend, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, no problem, I'll tell you all about it." And he explained the crime in full detail to the point where he brought the knife and the bloody clothes and said, "Here, see? It was me. I did it." That friend later did testify that he didn't know how to respond to that situation.
These people
He's
were
just kind of
fucking
like
terrified of him too.
They got more and more terrified as time went on, for sure. Later, that same friend that was like in a state of shock because he brought the buck knife and the bloody clothes to school.
Oh my god!
And was
not
like,
even like, come over to my house, I'll show you.
Like,
it's
here,
just like,
and was like, "Here, see."
It's not
and
fucking
that
show
friend
and
turned
tell.
around and was like, "Hey, so Daniel Marsh has a knife on him. You guys should probably do something about that." And it got him suspended.
Oh my god, that's when
that was the suspension.
Suspended? Oh my god. What the fuck?
At this point,
again,
so
many times
all of this happened in
arrested.
April. So I guess it kind of went into a little bit of a lull for May.
I think
for
May
some
people
for
were
some
just
reason
too
this
fucking
girl,
scared of him.
I think she was too scared of him, but out of a mixture of fear and disgust, Marsh's then girlfriend ended up breaking up with him on June 4th.
Yeah.
June 4th. almost 2 months after the murders.
Mm-hmm.
It only slightly backfired, though, when around a week or so later, he crawled through the doggy door.
Right. When she was like, how'd you get in here? And he's like, oh, I came in through your doggy door. And he was like he thought it was a romantic gesture. I'm sorry. Breaking into the girl's house is not a romantic gesture.
It is not. You should, if you have to break in, but it's a problem.
I think she was texting the friend that he had originally told about for the murders when he just she looked up and he was just in her room.
Yeah, and at that point she really started fearing for her life a lot more, and her and that friend finally started to speak out on it.
I'm sorry, could you imagine just be texting someone about the person you're talking about, and then you just look up and he's just fucking there.
For a short second, we're going to talk about his dad, Bill.
Okay. What's up, Bill?
He saved his dad's life.
Yeah, what's up, Bill?
They went to his dad and were like, hey, he committed these murders. 2 doors down from your house, those people that died.
That's another thing that fucking drives me wild.
Those people that died, that was your son. And apparently, through some other interviews and things that I read and videos that I watched, actually, Bill did not know Chip and Claudia. He was new He was new to the neighborhood. He had just moved there because it was close enough to Daniel's mom's house that he could walk to and from.
Got you. Okay, because that's what I was like. There was no way he didn't know them if he had lived there for a few years.
He was pretty new to the neighborhood, but on June 16th, they went to him and they're like, hey, your son killed those people. And he's like, no, they didn't.
There's no way.
He wouldn't do that.
The son that saved my life? There's no way he could take a life. Well, I'm sorry.
Through a lot of the trial, he kept saying, if Daniel says it, then it's true. And so I'm wondering if he was manipulated, or if because Daniel saved his life when he was 10, he just feels
couldn't
indebted.
Look at. Yeah.
So
sorry, your debt's been paid, buddy. He took 2 lives for saving one. You don't owe your son.
You don't owe him anything. You don't owe him anything at all. So after Marsh's dad was like, "No, he didn't do it," they finally went to the police about it. They should have gone to the police first.
Oh yeah, but I understand why they were like, okay, well, let's go to the dad and see if the dad knows, because then if the dad knows and the dad hasn't reported it, then what's going on?
Right. So if you watch, I don't remember if it's on the Explore With Us episode, but if you watch, there was an episode of this done by CBS on their show 48 Hours. I believe it was season 31, episode 8 or 9, maybe.
I'm sure if you just look up his name and
the episode name is Portrait of a Killer. I know it's in season 31. It's available on Paramount Plus. That's how I watched it. Through the course of that, they've got clips of different audio recordings, including the 911 call, parts of the 911 call of his friend, and I'm leaving his friend's name out of it.
I believe that they do have the 911 call in there because he was asking if he could still be anonymous while telling, because he didn't want to say.
He started by saying he wanted to, can this be anonymous? And they said, well, what are you reporting? And he's like, double homicide.
Yeah,
and they got him over to an officer quick.
Right, because he even said he is scared for his own life by reporting the person, and that's what took him so long. Because he's even I'm so sorry that it took me this long to say something in the recording, and I don't blame him.
I don't either.
Because if someone tells you in detail that he was able to disembowel 2 people, he could. There's
easily
no doubt
do that to you.
Yeah, there's no doubt he could be
What's
okay, he's going to be able
point?
to overpower me and do this.
So he did tell reporters that he went to the police because Marsh had threatened to kill again. So I'm guessing that high was starting to wear off a little bit on him.
He needed a new story to tell.
Right. Well, just because of the amount of details that he knew when he called, because Marsh had told him everything.
Right, and they didn't release a whole lot to the public.
They brought him in and they interrogated him for a few hours, and then they ended up the following day, June 17th, having the school resource officer, which is just kind of like a school cop, basically.
Yeah, it's just the officer that's basically stationed at the school for the day.
So the FBI and the investigating team got them to bring him into the office, to bring Marsh into the office on the 17th. And that's where they arrested him, was there. And a lot of the interrogation videos that you see are from this initial situation in the Explore With Us. episodes. So, after just over 3.5 hours of interrogation, Marsh finally began to admit what he had done, quoted saying, "I couldn't take it anymore. I had to do it. I lost control." But that he was excited that he was actually going to do it, and it was finally happening. Those were like the thoughts that he was having just before he stabbed him was, it's actually happening. It's finally happening.
The way that he talks when they're like, okay, well, we know you did this. And he's like, I couldn't have. Like, he sounds so condescending the whole time. Like, you get him in, he asked, like, the investigator asked, like, maybe, like, 3 or 4 questions. And I already know, like, was like, this kid's fucking guilty. Because it's the way he's like, no, officer, I didn't do it. Like, are you even fucking trying to lie?
Right.
What do you think you're hiding from? He was just like, people are just trying to come out and get me. And it's just like the way he sounds like it's that teenager talk when you're like trying to be like, no, mom, I didn't do it.
But the crazy thing is through the course of those Explore With Us interrogation in their episode, after he admits it, he suddenly goes real monotone.
Oh yeah, he has like no fucking emotion, and it's
insanely monotone. So after finally starting to admit things, he went on to describe to the detective and the FBI agent that were interrogating him exactly how he murdered them, including pointing to his own chest and showing where he cut them and explaining what he did. And how he felt the whole way along, saying that it was pure happiness and adrenaline and dopamine, just all of it rushing over me.
Ugh.
Yeah. Now, further details of how twisted his responses were can be seen on that Explore With Us YouTube channel. I'll link the video to their Daniel Marsh episode down below in the description.
It is definitely one to go in with a mindset of this person is behind bars, because it towards the end is very hard to watch of how he is acting.
Oh yeah. Now, after explaining to the detective that he doesn't feel sympathy or empathy for other people and making a full confession, he told them flat out that all the evidence they needed for his conviction was in his mom's garage. That's where he had the clothes and the knife, was just like in a tote in the garage. Following a later search of the garage, they were able to find the bloody clothing and the knife that he had kept as souvenirs. Now, during that entire interrogation process, after they got Daniel to admit everything, one of the officers, I can't remember which officer it was, but one of the officers asked him, because Daniel had said, you know, when I see people, I see these flashes of how I'm going to kill them. And the officer asked him flat out, how would you kill me?
I think it was the FBI officer.
I can't remember which was which, I'll be honest.
I think it was the FBI one.
But yeah, he was like, oh, well, I'd strangle you with your tie and smash your face against the wall and break a mirror and cut you with it. Nothing personal, though. Yeah. So definitely give that Explore With Us episode a watch.
My God. The cop's just sitting there like, oh, okay.
Now, on to the trial. Now, this is the last but slightly longest section. So I'm going to try it. Just bear with me here. It's worth it. So Marsh was charged with 2 counts after the trial of... the trial was to charge Marsh with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special enhancements, which are... I'm so proud of myself for writing this down, so I have to share it with you.
Special enhancements?
Special enhancements are like DLC for the crime.
I'm sorry.
I am so proud of myself for that.
They're like DLC.
Like DLC for the murder charge.
Oh my goodness. Like, what would that entail? Like,
the special enhancements attached to Marsh's charges were for intentionally killing more than one person.
Oh, what? Okay.
Demonstrating exceptional depravity in the killings. Lying in wait to kill the victims. Inflicting torture in the commission of the murders. And the use of a deadly weapon to murder.
Were these basically just attachments to put onto the charges?
To add extra time onto the charge.
So then he could also be charged as an adult, basically, too?
I don't necessarily think so.
I
feel like it... That whole thing, how him being charged as an adult,
what state did
all
this
comes up.
in?
California.
That's a California thing to do, because like
it'll all come up.
The whole in wait for a murder, like, okay.
It's like stalking.
Well, yeah, like, I get that, but it's just, like,
It's all things to add extra time. To basically
but, like,
say
do you
yes.
get, like, here's 2 years because you waited to do it. Like, it's just weird how they separate it because, like, you would think they would just be included in all of it.
I feel like adding those special enhancements is a way to add time to the charge.
Oh, yeah.
You go out, walk past somebody on the street, and just pull a knife out of your pocket, shank them, and keep walking. They're walking past you the opposite way, and you're just like, this guy's good, and you just, bam, they're dead. Or you go out, you see a lady in a really pretty red coat, and you're like, man, I'm just going to follow her until nobody's watching. And you follow her for 6 blocks, and then you kill her. Like, I feel like both are bad charges, but the stalking is definitely...
The premeditation is
that's the proof of the premeditation.
Yeah. Like, I get why they're there, but I feel like, I don't know, just calling them special enhancements is just like...
It's a weird phrasing. That's why I described it as DLC for the crime.
Right. It's just like, oh, here's, like, it's the how that's adding to it. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like it might have just been also another edge to get him tried as an adult versus, like, hey, because you can murder somebody as a younger kid and still only end up in juvie. Right. But they usually do it when they go off of the how.
A lot of it depends on where you are. And in this particular case, as well as quite a few other cases in California, those details will come up because a lot of things happened during the events of this trial that made things change. Okay. So, all of those things he had initially pled not guilty towards for...
No, you don't get to sit there and
even
tell
though he
people.
had already confessed multiple times, he's like, I didn't do it.
You don't get to sit there and spill the whole fucking story to multiple people and then go, I didn't do it.
Exactly. So maybe he realized how stupid that was because he later changed his plea to not guilty by reason of insanity.
Oh, that's not any better.
Right. And in any case with an insanity plea, usually a psychiatrist becomes involved to either prove or disprove the insanity, which is what his defense attorneys did.
How to instantly get rid of this insanity thing. He taped his shoes and he hid the knife and whatnot, and he stood there for a bit. It's the fact that he knew, hey, the self-preservation of, I need to hide these, otherwise I'm going to get caught. That immediately fucking throws the insanity thing out. Exactly.
So the defense attorneys brought on Matthew Sallier. Sallier found him to be mentally ill, but still fully sane enough to stand trial. And despite his findings, his defense team was like, we're not going to bring you in on this because it doesn't work for us. Yeah, so they just went forward with the insanity case and the insanity defense and saying, well, it's because he's crazy.
Well, I don't fucking doubt that he's fucking insane, but it's not, he knew what he was doing, so it's not like he did it. It was like,
you can't tell me that his defense team didn't coach him in some sort of way.
Oh, they always
Because
do.
the first time that he met Sallier, he threatened to kill him. I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Why? That's not how this works.
That's not how any of this works. So
that's when you shut off and you act completely dead inside and you just like, I'm gonna start drooling on myself.
Right. Like, what? After a hearing to review all the physical evidence that they had, Marsh's defense team attempted to have his confession to police from the recording in that Explore With Us episode. They tried to have that confession removed from evidence, saying that it was coerced and that he said multiple times that he wanted to go home and they didn't let him go home and this, that, and the other thing.
He didn't say that he wanted to go home until like already 2.5 hours into the investigation, and then literally the next second he was like, okay.
Yeah. So, and he read his Miranda rights and he expressed that he understood exactly what they meant. They offered to get someone that could better explain it if he needed it. He waived his rights and chose to talk with officers anyway. Yeah. Which, I mean, at this point, I believe he was 16 when they brought him in. So, the Yolo Superior Court Judge, David Reed, who was overseeing the trial, denied the motion to have that confession removed because he was like, no, he knew what the fuck he was saying. He knew exactly what he was saying. So by the time the trial started in September of 2014, Marsh was 17 years old. And due to the nature of the crime, he was tried as an adult just because of how brutal it was.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he was a juvenile at the time, they were just like, well, this was pretty fucked up, so we're gonna send you to big boy jail when you get older. And in a trial that lasted a total of 5 weeks, with witnesses including the former friend who turned him in and his ex-girlfriend, he was found guilty on both counts of first-degree murder, as well as all the special circumstances.
I felt bad for the ex-girlfriend during the trial and how she felt like, and I think she even like apologized to the victim's family and everything like that, because when she went on the stand, she was just so terrified to be like in the same room as him, and he wouldn't stop just like staring her down.
Right.
That any questions that she was asked, she was like crying hysterically and going, I don't know, like I don't remember, and like she just felt like she didn't help them at all.
At this point, it had been such a long time since the murders had happened. It felt, and especially in a traumatic situation like that.
But also, like, I think that was like the first time that she was able to see him face to face since the murder, or like since he was picked up, obviously.
Since he broke into her house.
Yeah,
probably.
and like, I don't blame her in any sense for the reaction that she had, because she was just that fucking terrified. Because I think she also said that she thought that he was just gonna like lunge at her in the courtroom. In some interviews that I've seen, like, she was that...
I believe it.
She was that fucking terrified, and like I don't blame
it.
her, but I feel bad that she felt like she didn't help them. But I think jurors just seeing that reaction of someone who was close to him, like, seeing that person, they're like, okay, this person's a little fucked up. Like,
and the jury for the case, I believe, was majority women. I can't recall.
Oh yeah, so they were feeling for her.
So the whole trial lasted 5 weeks. The last few days of that 5 weeks was actually to determine whether or not he was sane when he committed the murders. They'll reach the verdict of guilty or not guilty, and then they'll be like, okay, now let's work on this insanity plea thing and see whether or not it's legitimate.
Yeah, because it depends on if you go to an actual jail or if you go to a
psychiatric ward. Yeah. Spoiler alert: he was sane when he committed the murders, and despite being tried as an adult, him being underage meant that he would not be able to get the life without parole or the death penalty charges. The maximum that they could give him was 52 years to life. Absolute maximum.
Yeah.
And the defense was fighting for half of that. They only wanted 25 years to life.
But here's the thing. He can do the 52 years, but it's also to life. So he, after the 52 years or whatever,
that's when he'd be eligible for
parole. They're not going to fucking give him parole. Unless he's, like, completely outstanding, doesn't, in that whole 52 years, doesn't get in trouble once, and the parole board kind of thinks, like, okay, well,
despite the defense fighting for only the 25 years to life charge, Judge Reed chose to go with the 52 years to life. What he did for that was he charged 25 years to life for both Chip and Claudia, and the additional 2 years added on to that he attributed to all of the special circumstances. Yeah. That's where that extra 2 years came from. So it was finally, you know, the family could take a deep breath and finally mourn and be at peace, because it was finally over. Except it wasn't. Indeed.
Oh, I know what you're about to read me, aren't? Oh, no.
Not quite.
Not quite?
Not
okay,
quite.
I was going to say.
Close. I was saving that for later. I know what you're talking.
Oh, no.
So in 2016, the voters of California passed Proposition 57. Proposition 57 determined that juvie court judges must be the one to determine if someone underage is to be tried in juvenile court or adult court. And they added on to that 2 years later in 2018 that the effects of Proposition 57 could be applied retroactively, so any case that was not yet finalized could have that applied to it. How does this affect Daniel's case? Well, it meant that at the end of February 2018, his conviction was temporarily reversed to determine if he qualified to be protected under Proposition 57, Why do I say protected? Because it means that he would have to go back to do another case in a juvenile court.
Oh, another trial.
And determine another trial in a juvenile court and determine whether or not he was meant to be in one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the family was pissed.
Oh, yeah, I would. Yeah.
But prosecution's like, no big deal. We're fine. We're going to cover all of our bases. So they filed all the same charges again through the juvenile court system. And at the same time they filed that, they filed a motion to transfer the entire case to an adult court, basically nulling out the whole process and saying, see, we already did this trial.
Mm-hmm.
So while they were awaiting the hearing for that transfer, the governor of California at the time, Jerry Brown, signed a Senate bill that blocked juveniles from under the age of 16 to be tried as adults outright. Now, he went so far as to say this about the Marsh case in particular. He said, Senate Bill 1391 eliminates the authority for a court to decide whether a 14 or 15-year-old charged with certain serious offenses is unfit for the juvenile system, and that he feels for the family, but redemption and reformation wherever possible.
Well, I understand that bill. I do, because you get these kids, especially in California, that are like wrapped up in gang violence and all of that kind of stuff, and then you get 15-year-olds that get life to prison, and then it's just like, well. But I feel like in this instance,
I don't think it should matter. Not in this instance.
In this instance, he was already 16 by the time he went to trial.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're going off of like the age of when the crime was committed, then like, okay.
Actually, he was 17 by the time it got into trial. He was 16 when he got arrested.
So then they're protecting kids under 16. It's not 16 and under. It's under 16. That's where that.
But, he was under 16 at the time of the crime. I think
so they're going off of the
that's
crime.
when they're
Okay.
going off of it. And in a last-ditch effort of all of this, Marsh's defense team was like, hey, so Senate Bill 1391, that doesn't go into effect until January. Can we just not do the hearing until then? And the new presiding judge over this situation, Sam McAdam, was like, nah, we're not postponing anything. Like, we're taking
doing this
care
now.
of this. We're doing this now. So in October of 2018, he was sent back to state prison to continue serving his adult
Was he
sentence.
released?
He was not released at any point. He was just kind of like held in limbo.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, if they fucking released him,
No,
he would have
they
been
didn't.
gone.
They didn't. He was just kind of in limbo. So he was sent back to state prison to continue serving his adult sentence. And Sam McAdam, that presiding judge again, closed up the trial by saying, and this is a long quote, but it's an important quote, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This was a highly sophisticated, extraordinary, and rare crime, even for the most hardened and seasoned adult criminal. He went on to say, there is no question that the crimes here were committed by a psychopath who is also suffering from mental illness. The more difficult question is whether Marsh is still a psychopath with criminal desires, and whether that personality trait can be rehabilitated. As both experts pointed out, most psychopaths are not criminals. So they're trying to figure out, okay, he's got some brain issues, but, like, he killed people. Like, most people that go crazy don't just kill people.
No.
My notes rotated. So in the middle of the defense team's efforts to have him tried as a juvenile, this is that part you were waiting for.
I hate it.
Marsh gave a TED Talk. And it was uploaded to YouTube for 2 days to the TED Talks YouTube channel.
Who the fuck gave this man a TED Talk? That's what I want to know. I just want to throw hands at them. I really do.
It was up there for 2 days before the efforts from the family made sure that it was removed. I believe it was Claudia's granddaughter that got it removed. Claudia's granddaughter and her wife got it removed. They worked really hard to kind of squash that, and I'm glad they did. The title of the TED Talk was Embracing Our Humanity. Now, I don't know if you have Paramount Plus, Kate.
I do.
You do. So you should probably go on to 48 Hours and find that episode and watch that episode, because they do have some clips from the TED Talk. So you get an idea of how he sounds.
I'm watching that tonight.
It really helps you get an idea of how he sounds when he's giving this speech. Now, I was able to find a transcript of the entire TED Talk, and I'm not going to read the entire thing for you. I am going to give you the meat and potatoes, so to speak. In a TED Talk titled Embracing Our Humanity, a speech given by a young man who, in his teenage years, brutally murdered 2 people and openly admitted to wanting to do more. He found a way to gain sympathy because, like I said last episode, he was a smooth talker. And you can hear it in those little clips of that TED Talk on that 48 Hours episode.
I want to fight this dude. I want to fight him.
No,
I'd
no
lose, but I want to fight him.
No fighting this dude. So, and in the beginning of the TED Talk, he is talking about how his family was fighting a lot and how at one point, for the first time ever, this never came up in any other situation, but during this TED Talk, he said that he was sexually molested by 2 separate people in his youth. And he had never admitted it before because I can't remember if he was too scared to or whatever, but he kept it secret and he felt ashamed about it and he felt disgusting. And the fact that this never came up anywhere else, even through all of the therapy that he went through, his best friend knew nothing about it. They asked him. He knew nothing about it.
He was just like, what can I say to make people feel bad for me?
Now, in the course of this TED Talk, he explained that he made a friend named Boris, and Boris worked with his mother, and how Boris became a big brother / father figure for him, really important person in his life. He made mention of how when he was 12 years old, his mom got really, really sick, and that him and his sister were taking care of her, and later on to say that his mom had called and said that Boris had killed himself. And he's trying to, through the course of what I'm viewing this as, he's trying to build all of this up to get sympathy. And he turns around to say that as a result of Boris's suicide, I'm not sure if Boris is a real person.
There's no mention of him, like, anywhere.
Right. He mentions that he stole a handful of his mom's pain pills from her purse and over the course of a month tried to overdose. You don't overdose over the course of a month.
Unless
if you take a handful of pills, you take them all at once.
Unless it was him wording it in a way where he's like, for a month I wanted to overdose but couldn't.
I'm not sure. He said he failed and he woke up in a pile of his own vomit and all of his pain turned to anger and it made him angry at people.
And he definitely was being dumb about it.
But it's crazy because in this entire thing, there's one sentence that relates directly to this case in the entire TED Talk.
Oh, so it's just him going like, oh, poor me.
Yeah, this was all his, my childhood was terrible. This is going to be a loose, direct quote. I'm going to start the thing about the transcript is I had to kind of figure out punctuation myself, so I don't know if I'm starting at the beginning of a sentence or not.
Right.
But he said, when nobody cares about you and the people who are supposed to care deliberately hurt you, it is hard to care about others. And when you feel that you have no connection to humanity, it becomes easy to lash out. That's exactly what I did. All of this pain, this rage consumed me, and I did horrible things to people who never deserved to be hurt. In the end, I became the same kind of person that I hated to begin with. Someone who blindly hurt other people. My rage against humanity landed me in juvenile hall, and to my surprise, the staff there were some of the kindest people I had ever met. That's all that he mentions in that TED Talk about
this person
about
so
the
much.
2 people that he brutally murdered. All he says is, well, my rage got me in juvie.
Again, even in that, it's just like, oh, poor me. Oh, poor me. It was too much. Oh, poor me.
And after that, he talks about how he was transferred to the California Youth Authority, which was another juvie, and how things were extremely violent there. And then when he turned 18, he ended up going to an adult prison. He said it wasn't a easy transition, and he was living with a violent man who would lash out at him and start cell fights almost every day. I'm not sure how true that is. Maybe arguments, but I don't necessarily know. It'd be like full-on brawl.
No, because if you have a full-on brawl, you're in the shoe. Like, what?
Right. And he claimed that being stuck in a cell with that guy kind of helped him realize, oh, well, if I don't change my ways, I'm going to end up like this asshole.
Well, you're in the same place as him.
Now, after that, he was... It's all about getting the sympathy for me. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, I swear.
No.
But I'm going to send you this transcript after this.
God,
I wanted to keep it secret from you, and you knew I had it, but I didn't want you to read it until after this recording.
Mm-hmm.
So, at one point, he's talking about how, well, if I'm going to change my ways, then I need to figure out why people hate, I guess. And he's like, well, how am I going to figure that out? Oh, I know. I'll talk to a skinhead. Skinheads hate everybody. They're racist. So maybe he'll help me understand. So he goes up to the skinhead and he's like, hey, buddy, like, how'd you end up in here? Like, what in your life brought you here? And the skinhead was like, well, I grew up in a racist family and my father was abusive. And then I met some skinheads and they took care of me and were my family. So I do whatever I can for family. Anything for family.
Vin Diesel?
Well,
no.
skinhead. Anyway.
This man just, oh my God. I want to fight him.
Another little direct quote that I'm going to throw in here is, he said, there's an old saying that until about 9 months ago I had never heard. Hurt people hurt people. So people who are hurt are the ones that are most likely to hurt other people. And he was talking about how there's no such thing as evil, and there's no such thing as evil people, only damaged people.
I beg to differ. There are people who have lived a perfect fucking life, and they are
and they're just like, oh,
and they
dead.
can still be the worst fucking person. But it's just like, oh my God, he is just trying so fucking hard to get sympathy. And you know damn well he probably is going to try to fucking appeal. And he's trying to get people on his side. He's trying to get the public on his side. It's not going to fucking happen.
No, there were bits and pieces of this transcript that I was only able to fill in the blanks on by catching those clips in the 48 Hours episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do my best, for the love of God, I encourage you to watch that episode.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do my best to kind of temporarily adopt the mannerisms for how he spoke his last few lines. Not few lines. So, last quote from it that I'm going to give you. We have to be better than hate. We have to be better than fear. We must learn to respond with love even in the most difficult situations. But above all else, when this world seems too inhumane for us to bear, we must always embrace our humanity.
I want to punch him.
He was given applause and a standing ovation.
I want to punch him.
He was in his fucking prison shit, in cuffs.
Wait, they didn't do the fucking video one? He was actually on stage?
I believe he was actually on stage.
I want to fight him. I legitimately want to fight this person. And I am not a violent person.
Don't make me get you a muzzle. So,
I just want to slap him with a psychology textbook.
now, a bunch of legal stuff still kind of happened. Ultimately, he will likely be eligible for parole after 25 years due to updates to laws and things like
California,
that.
they did the 25.
Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty likely that they'll keep him in there because a lot of... See, the thing is...
they're going to take into account the family.
They will, and the family will fight tooth and nail to keep him in there.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed. But prior to Daniel's later appeals as a result of Senate Bill 1391, the same psychiatrist that the defense team had hired, Salier, he came back into the situation and spoke to Daniel again and said, "Oh, you know, he seems so much better. he seems so rehabilitated. But I really, truly, in my deepest heart of hearts, believe that this is a case where he's manipulating.
He has learned how to talk to people and to get his way.
A true psychopath can make you believe whatever they want you to believe. He's a storyteller.
I think the fact that
if you look at this transcript, you can read through the entire thing and see how much of a storyteller is.
I think the fact that he scored higher on that test than Gacy and Jeffrey Dahmer should have. That's gonna be their big fucking indicator. This person cannot go on back onto the streets because
he outranked them. The only one he didn't outrank was Ted Bundy,
and who is he exactly fucking like? Ted Bundy.
A big reason why he couldn't score quite as high as Ted Bundy is because some of those questions involve things like having multiple marriages and things like that.
Yeah. So it's just, I want to fight him. I want to fight him. I want to fight him. I want to take a psychology book. You can't fight him. I want to take a psychology book and just like whack.
So that was the case of the murders of Chip Northup and Claudia Maupin at the hands of murderer Daniel William Marsh, because all murderers get 3 names. That was shitty. Like, really shitty. How many doozies? All the doozies?
All the doozies.
I don't think we're going to have another option. It's going to be either all the doozies or 5 doozies. Those are your choices. It's going to be
all the doozies, and you also want to hit him with a psychology book. Psychology textbook. Just...
Those things are pretty fucking thick.
Exactly what I want to just whack.
You going to be able to pick that up?
Bro, I will destroy my shoulder in order to have the chance. Fuck my rotary cuff. It's going.
Lord.
Even if they do release him, he is never going to be able to go and live out a normal life.
No.
Because he'll
probably be on papers his whole life.
He's going to be on parole. He's probably going to have, like, house arrest. He's not going to be able to go and walk freely in a street because they don't just let murderers do that. Like, unless it's, like, the case. It depends on the case because sometimes they're like, okay, well, like, self-defense, but it was, like, enough of a break in between thing to where it's like, this is technically murder. Those cases, I feel like it's all circumstantial. They tend to be a little less harsh with, like, the probation.
Right.
But even then, he is probably going to be on probation for, like, 5 to 10 years even after.
Right, easily.
So, I don't see him getting out because that is not a person that you would want on the streets because without a doubt he would kill again, and now he knows how to get away with it. He knows not to talk about it.
The craziest thing to me is he quoted saying that he was doing population control, and that's part of why he did it. But, like,
you're doing population
doing the things
control.
that you're doing, you're exactly the kind of person that they would get rid of if they were doing.
Oh, yeah, but if, like, again, if he was doing, population control, that's when you see people, like, that do the fucking did the Las Vegas shooting. You would go that route for quote-unquote population control. You try to get as many gone as possible in a short amount of time. Not go break into an old couple's house and, like, start messing with their bodies just because you can.
Just because why not, yeah.
So he's full of shit. I want to punch him.
Join us next week for Gypsy Rose Blanchard's case.
Yes. Because she gets out.
She gets out shortly after Christmas, and her episode's going to be posted
3 days after Christmas. So, she also got married in jail. I found that out. I didn't realize that she did.
My understanding is she ended up breaking up with the other guy and meeting someone else through.
Yeah, as soon as, like, they got arrested, she was like, Nick, we're done. No.
Thanks for killing my mom, bye.
Well, we'll get into him. He's interesting.
Yeah, so definitely come back next week. Check that one out. I know I'm gonna, because I'm gonna be in it.
I'm so fucking surprised that you do not know a whole lot about it.
The only thing I know is that it's a Munchausen by proxy case, and that she met what's-his-face online.
On a Christian dating site.
Yeah, and he was like, sure, I'll do that for you.
Yeah, I'll go into, like, why it came up, and it's...
Juicy details.
It's juicy details.
So we'll see you guys for that case, do you want to say bye first, or do I say bye first?
Rock, paper, scissors. I did rock, she did scissors. Bye.